Hello, everybody. This is Wolfbitn, and we've got another spur of the moment discussion tonight. Looking forward to this. Tonight, I have with me Mr. Steve McRae. Some of you guys may know Steve. He's atheist. He has a debating community. I guess he's friends with Aaron Rye. He knows Mr. Dillahunty, etc. So we've had a few discussions in the past. On in chat rooms and stuff, or message boards, groups I should say, on each other's Facebook and stuff. But tonight we're going to have a discussion. This should be really good. But Steve, go ahead and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce the topic.
Sure. My name's Steve McRae, and it's MC capital RAE. There's only one C in the description that you have. I do know Aaron. I mean, obviously, Aaron's been on my channel many times. I do not know Matt. He's only been in my channel once. He's watched one of my videos and commented, but I've never talked to Matt Dillahunty. I've talked to Aaron quite a few times, obviously, but I'm not an atheist. My channel is actually dedicated to the discussion of rational discourse, and it's basically irrationalism versus rationalism, vice theism versus atheism. So my personal position is not atheist and not theist. It's what is called a temporal agnostic.
So you consider yourself agnostic as opposed to atheism?
Correct.
Okay, so you reject atheism, you reject theism.
Not necessarily reject. I suspend judgment on them. To reject something means that you're taking a proposition and you're taking the opposite approach, right? So
you're rejecting them as opposed to accepting them.
To reject is different than not accept. There's two different things.
Well,
if I reject a proposition,
you have the choice to hold one position or reject that position, which would you do with atheism?
Neither. I suspend judgment on it.
So
if you reject
so you're going to say already that there's no difference between turning it down or rejecting it as being the opposite of not accepting it.
If you reject something, you're taking the opposite position.
Exactly. So if you reject atheism, you're not taking that position.
Right. You're taking the theist position, which I'm not. So I can't reject atheism.
Why would you do that?
If I reject atheism, that would make me a theist. I'm not a theist.
No, you could reject both.
Well, that would be nonsensical. I mean,
why? That's where we get agnostics.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to word it that way, fine. I say that they just don't accept either one. I mean, if you want to put it as reject both,
I'm just saying it's semantics. There's no real difference if they don't accept it or they reject it. You know, if you go to join the army and you're not accepted, you're rejected. Same thing. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
I just don't hold either position.
Yeah, they reject both views. They refuse to hold either.
I can accept that non-propositionally, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're really going to be discussing, everybody, and this should be a really interesting topic. We have the question of, does God exist? Now, we have our three basic categories of atheist, agnostic, or theist. And the question is, I submit that atheism is actually the most illogical and unscientific of the three possible choices. And Steve here is going to be taking the opposite view, and we're going to be discussing the pros and cons. So, Steve, by all means, go ahead, and I'll give you the first few minutes to open it up here. Tell us why you think it is not the most illogical and unscientific choice.
Well, first, I got to say, I find the premise to be completely malformed. You don't determine a theological position based on science. Science has nothing to do with atheism or theism or any other position. So to even formulate what position has any relevancy to science is completely a misnomer. So I find that part of the topic to be just nonsensical to me. As far as logical, any position is logical if you can show that there's a logic to it, right? The way logic would work would be very simple. I have a proposition: some God exists, or at least one God exists. That's my proposition. In academics or in philosophy, a theist would support that position. An atheist would reject that proposition. An agnostic would suspend judgment on it. A apatheist would say they don't care. Theological non-cognitivists would say that question doesn't even make sense. There's no such thing as God or something to even. There's no concept of God. I can't even tell you what a God is. What does that mean to say some God exists? So they think the concept is completely malformed. Now, if you wanted to say which position is kind of like the most illogical, I would submit that theological cognitivist is, because a theological cognitivist says that they're not even theist nor non-theist. And you have generally, for any set, you have a complementary set, right? So I have the set of theism. Anybody that is not theism, or not a theist, is a non-theist. That's a direct complementary set to the other set. Now, a non-theological cognitivist would say they're in neither of the sets.
In other words, they would be an agnostic.
No, an agnostic is a non-theist. If you're not a theist, anything that's not a theist is a non-theist. That's the complement set.
Okay, now go ahead and tell me what the other group that you're talking about, what it does.
A theological cognitivist says the proposition cannot be you cannot attribute a truth value to it.
In other words, they take neither the position of atheism nor theism.
Worse than that, they don't even they can't even put people in a category of theism or non-theism, and that's a dichotomy, right? A or not.
How do you figure that?
Well, do you know what a dichotomy is?
Yeah, go ahead. How do you figure it?
Because theological non-cognitivist says that the whole concept of these categories are nonsensical, so they cannot be put in a category to be like.
So they have no position either way. They choose neither atheism nor theism.
But you're missing the bigger picture.
That makes them an agnostic, right?
No, you're missing the bigger picture. They're not agnostic either. They are neither theist or any group under non-theist.
So they're agnostic.
No, agnostics are non-theist.
Agnostic. They are agnostic.
Agnostics are a type of non-theist.
Isn't it true that an agnostic rejects both positions? They do not accept either position of atheism or theism.
And a theological cognitivist says, what is atheism and what is theism?
Okay, so it's still rejecting them and not holding to either one.
And they also would not be put under non-theism and atheism, theism, and
no, you're just pulling that out of your butt, dude.
No, that's what a theological cognitivist.
They've got the choice. They've got the choice. They can accept theism or not. They can accept atheism or not. When you choose neither position, you are, by definition,
not what a theological cognitivist says. A theological cognitivist says the proposition has no ability to have a truth value assigned to it.
In other words, they're agnostic.
No, an agnostic says it can have a truth value assigned to it. As an agnostic myself,
they can, but not necessarily.
There's a huge difference between an agnostic and a theological non-cog.
Well, they both reject the idea of theism, and they both reject the idea of atheism.
But an agnostic is still under non-theism. A theological non-cog would not be.
Hold on a second. We've got Brendan in with us. Hello, Brendan. Welcome.
Yeah, hey, Brendan.
Hey, how's it going?
Nice to actually talk to you, man.
Hold on just a second.
Yeah, it's good to meet you, Steve.
Yeah, likewise.
And
yeah, I've been here for about, I think, probably about the last 5 minutes. I caught the majority of this conversation. Pretty interesting so far. I like it.
We're going to be checking something here. Now,
crickets, man.
Yeah, doors open. Beautiful, beautiful out here. Yeah. Okay. All right.
By the way, you're going to fix my name later. I'm ODD on that.
Yeah, no problem.
Good.
Okay, number 3. This is the definition for agnostic. Okay. You see, it's a pretty full definition that's listed.
No, it's not.
Sure it is.
I reject colloquial definitions. If you want to use definitions, go to a philosophical source.
Anyway, I see why you want to reject it. The definition of agnostic is
a dictionary.
The definition of agnostic is a person who holds neither of two opposing views.
Yeah, they're too generic.
Okay.
If you're going to give a definition, because we're talking about philosophical positions, why do you go to a colloquial?
Are you saying my philosophical position is wrong in that we don't have agnostics, atheists and theists?
I'm saying if you want to understand what these concepts are, you need to go to a philosophical source. Just like if you want to understand science, you need to go to a scientific source.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
because
Well,
definitions
if
for
you
science
recall,
are different than what you find in the dictionary.
yeah.
Right?
If
Is
you
that true?
recall, you agreed with me yesterday on this.
I agree with you. 80% is the other 20% that you need to get right, and you're
So
not.
here's what we're going to see that you agree on. Let me see. Where was
You were
that?
more correct than Brandon was. No offense, but I think Brandon actually may have the potential to understand this better. If you talk about last night's conversation with him with them, yes, you were more in the correct than he was, but you both were wrong. And I was saying in the live chat, you both are making mistakes.
Well,
Yeah, no offense taken to that. I'm good.
the position that we were taking is that we have atheists, we have theists, and we have agnostics, and that the terms that are in between, like agnostic, atheist, are incorrect, misunderstood, misapplied, and just plain wrong. There's no such thing.
In some case, well, it's again, this is where you got to tread carefully. Look at, okay, the term agnostic is contextual. It can mean an epistemic modifier, but only if it makes sense in using it in the hard atheist position. So a hard atheist says, I believe God does not exist.
Well, we were saying that, you said all that hard atheist and soft atheist stuff was nonsense.
No, listen to me carefully.
Yeah, you said that to
what
me.
What I said was, in relationship to soft atheism, it is nonsensical. Matt Dillahunty has a video on this with Anthony Magnabosco. He's telling him straight out, and he's thought about it. And the reason he's thought about this is no in small part to our group and somebody in our group that had this conversation with him. Agnostic atheism doesn't make sense in light of soft atheism. In terms of hard atheism, it's redundant.
Yeah.
So why use it if it's redundant?
Okay,
why it's redundant?
We're gonna open this up, and I'm gonna share this. This is your what you wrote to Brendan yesterday. Okay, sure. You introduce yourself. You introduce yourself, and then you say, Eric and I don't agree on much, but on this, I happen to agree with him, as well as most atheists I know do as well.
Right.
That atheism is not just a lack of belief.
According to philosophy.
Yeah. Right. You go on then to describe, and you say, meaning that agnostic in this view are neither theists nor atheists.
Right. But now this is where you're getting confused, though.
I'm not the confused one here, dude.
Okay, well, I do this regularly. This is
we had those
my area of my channel, so I'm telling you, I'm very not confused on this.
Well, we agreed that there were those three positions. Now, the question is, of those three positions, is atheism the most?
There are multiple more positions than that. Do you realize that?
We're talking about these three positions.
Okay, where do the other positions fall then? What is skepticism? What is pantheism? What is atheism?
You and I agreed that there were only these three positions.
No, I've never agreed that.
That's what we were
absolutely not. I've never agreed that.
But all this other stuff is ridiculous. That's what you just said right here, Eric.
There are many positions on this on the theological landscape.
When discussing atheism, agnosticism, or theism, that covers everybody.
No, it doesn't.
Well, sure it does.
No, it doesn't cover theological non-cogs. It doesn't cover ichthyists.
Of course, agnostics cover them.
No, it does not.
You're rejecting both positions.
No, you're making the same mistake by trying to assume agnostics under atheism like they are.
Which position do they accept?
The theological non-cog?
Yeah.
None of them.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
They don't accept theism. They don't accept atheism or agnosticism.
So which do they more closely resemble?
None of them. That's the whole point of being a theological non-cog.
No. You're just trying to get out of it, dude. Okay,
How am I trying to get out of it? This is logical reasoning.
You're trying to get out of it because you're not admitting that.
Tell me what a
they fall under the definition of agnostic. That's
no, they do not. No, absolutely they do not. Then you don't understand what theological non-cog.
Okay. You can say that. Everybody knows.
Then tell me what a theological non-cog is.
Everybody knows better. Now here's
no. Brendan, do you know what a theological non-cog is?
Now we're going to get into whether it's the.
I have a basic understanding of what a theological non-cog is.
Can Brendan tell us what a theological?
Hold on, Brendan. We're going to go into why atheism is the most unreasonable, unscientific, and illogical position to hold of the three.
Well, I would like to actually finish this if I can,
Now,
because
well,
you kind of
we
like
already
this
showed that
off.
you agreed with me basically, and now
No,
That's not at all what just happened.
that is not what just happened.
Well,
At
let me
all.
just ask you, what does it, to the question of does God exist? What does the atheist position tell us?
You want the philosophical, or do you want the colloquial?
Well, we have the three positions of atheist, agnostic, and theist.
You're asking about one of those positions. Do you want the
Yes.
you want the theological? I mean, do you want the philosophical definition that you'll find in Stanford's Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the International?
Okay, let's put it in a nutshell. Okay, this is the problem with the people that don't want to come forward with a straight answer. You pretend like you don't understand.
You have to ask a straight question. Your question.
All right. The question is, does God exist? An atheist would answer A, yes, B, no, or C, I am agnostic on the position.
A philosophical atheist would reject the proposition and say that proposition is false. A colloquial under the colloquial definition, which you will find in a generic type source, a soft atheist would say, I lack a belief in that. They're two different types of atheists.
Well, you already talked about how lack of belief is an improper definition.
No, I did not. Again,
sure you did.
You're completely misquoting to what I'm saying, and this is what people need to know.
Here's what it says.
That is not what I was saying. Okay,
Eric and I don't agree on much, but on this, I happen to agree with him, as well as most atheists I know do as well, that atheism is not just a quote.
Can I explain it now?
Unquote.
Or do you want to just repeat it a million times? Can I explain it?
You go on.
All right, so let me explain this. Atheism is not just a lack of belief when you factor in the philosophical position. Since that position exists, I believe that it is inappropriate to say atheism is just a lack of belief. If, however, you do not think or worry about the philosophical position, if you just take it as soft,
as long as you're not worried about the real meaning, it's cool.
Well,
you can change it.
I've been fighting against this for ages. This is what I was trying to explain to Brendan last night, and he was more than willing to listen. He was quite agreeable to listen to this. However,
so you agree with me that.
Listen to me. It is still a valid definition. If an atheist wants to say they're a lack theist, that's the name that Ozzy has coined. The neologism that means a lack of belief is mostly a pejorative, but somebody that wants to basically take the soft atheist approach, but have a hard atheist opinion, and then avoid a burden of justification. That's generally what it means. But just make it very simple. A lack theist is somebody who lacks a belief. There are definitions out there that you can go by. I don't like that definition. I don't accept that definition for me. But if anybody else wants to, I cannot stop them. It's a weak definition. It leads to absurdities that I believe, but I cannot stop somebody from having a bad definition if they want to use it. There's no intrinsic.
Okay, so we agree it's a bad definition.
Oh, absolutely, it's a bad definition.
Okay, good.
But it is a definition.
But it's a bad one. It's not a correct one.
Yeah. Do you know where it came from?
Not a correct usage. Okay.
Yeah. Do you know
it doesn't really matter. The point is, it's incorrect.
Well, where it came from does matter. It's a big thing. People should know where it came from. It came from 1972 by a paper by a guy named Anthony Flew called "The Presumption of Atheism." You should know the history behind this stuff if you're going to be discussing it.
Well,
it's really critical, actually.
I don't need to read 10,000 dozen philosophical books to know that atheism holds a position where they.
Well, you really should.
You really should. I mean, seriously.
Oh, I do. I read, and trust me, I've had hundreds of debates in the last year. Hundreds.
But these are
most of them were moderated. So, the thing is now we're going to get into the question of how illogical it is to hold the atheist position and how unscientific. You made a statement a little bit ago that this has nothing to do with science. Well,
correct.
It certainly can.
So the question of if it's scientific or not, your premise saying it's unscientific is completely irrelevant.
And I'm saying that.
Let me ask you something. When conducting any sort of science, can we have a bias?
Sure. I think everybody has a bias when they conduct science.
Oh, well, then you're not practicing science. You're practicing pseudoscience if you practice it.
That's not how it works. Again, why don't you take some courses in science? What science recognizes that people have bias. The way they go about it is to tell
real science does not use that bias. Pseudoscience.
You interrupt me, I can't explain it, Eric. Because this is the time where you're in my wheelhouse, so let me explain it to you. A scientist will have bias. To deny that bias is impossible to say that they don't have it. What you do is you be objective and you put that bias to the side. You don't say that it does not exist.
Thank you.
There's a difference in what you just said and what I just said, though.
All right, now, what does science do? Tell me what science.
Science explains natural phenomenon.
Okay. Does science observe?
Science observes, tests, and has experimentation.
Okay. Okay. Observes. And go ahead, explain that again to everybody.
Science observes, has experimentation, and comes up with an explanation for an observed phenomenon.
Okay. Now, does science? All right. Let's talk about this for a moment. Let's talk about illogical and unscientific.
Sure.
How unscientific would it be if you were to come up with a theory that depended on your knowledge of whether or not a God existed, and you chose the position of God does not exist?
It would be 100% unscientific because science adheres to what's called methodological naturalism.
In other words, you can't scientifically.
You cannot justify God claim.
You can't justify that claim scientifically, correct?
You cannot claim God exists or does not exist using science. That is outside its purview.
Well, that's not true. You can use the claim.
It is true. That's the basis of science.
You can use the claim that God exists.
No, you cannot.
You can't use the claim. Of course you can, because that's testable in a number of ways.
Then you're violating one of the main principles of science, which is methodological naturalism.
Explain that.
Methodological naturalism is the position that all natural phenomenon had natural explanations. You cannot invoke God to be an explanatory position. One, because it's outside the realm of naturalism, and two, something that explains everything explains nothing.
I'm saying that in just the exact same way that you can test the theories regarding the Big Bang, which you can't directly test them. You have to test their prediction.
Well, that's what we do. But
you have to exactly. I'm right.
Yeah, we test. Well, we test prediction.
Well, we can do the same thing with God. We can say, well, if the Bible is true, then we can make our certain predictions.
But you can't. That violates
absolutely we can.
Okay.
Now, how logical is it to take an atheist position?
Well, let's get this started.
When you're making a claim to know what you cannot possibly know, how logical is it?
Eric, two different things. One, if you don't know what methodological naturalism is, as opposed
of course I do, dude. I wanted you to explain it for everybody.
Okay, can you tell everybody what ontological naturalism is then?
Look.
I guess not. Okay, so let me just let me just. I mean, I don't think you know these terms, Eric. I just don't.
I don't care what you think. Here's what I do know. Here's what I do know.
And the people listening,
I do know for a fact, that you try to get out of the fact that there agnostics exist as people that reject both atheism and.
I'm fine with that. You can use that term. Whatever. Okay. They reject both sides. Sure.
Okay, fine. You finally come along there. You did say that I was right.
It's not worth the quibble.
Okay. You did say I was right in these positions here previously, as I showed everybody here.
Well, I wrote that. So yeah.
Now, we're also asking though, how logical is it to make a claim that you cannot possibly know?
Who first of all, an atheist.
Atheists claim with the question, does God exist? The atheist says no, the theist says yes, and the agnostic chooses neither.
Let's analyze this. Brendan, pay close attention here. I'm glad you're here. I want
you. Sure, I got you.
Good. All right, so here's the proposition. P equals some God exists, which is equivalent to at least one God ontologically exists in the universe. Would you both agree with that? They're the same thing, right? At least one God exists or some God exists.
Now,
how's that not any different? That's not even a contention. That's the same thing.
The question is,
one God exists in the universe. At least one God existing in the universe is exactly the same as saying some God exists. At least there's one God. It's the same thing. Okay. So the theist asserts that to be true.
Right.
Okay. The atheist asserts that not to be true. However, those are both what's called dasastic or belief positions. They're not asserting them as knowledge claims. Right.
So of course they're assuming knowledge.
No, they're not. These are dasastic positions.
If I ask you, does God exist? And you say no, you are making
that is a belief claim.
You are making
by definition. Claim. No, listen.
Okay. It's the agnostic that would say, "I don't choose either position either."
Eric, you don't understand how this works. Do you know what the word?
I understand exactly how
I don't think you do, and
I understand that you're trying to get out of this too, because
there's nothing to get out of. This is basic.
Yeah, when you're making claims that you can't possibly prove.
Well, I could show you. I can show you though. Do you know what the word belief means in philosophy?
Let me ask you the basic question here.
How about you just maybe you just answer your question for us? Do you know what the word belief?
You don't seem to grasp what we're talking about here.
I grasp this just fine. I run Hangouts and
I
talk to PhDs on this topic all the time, every day.
Then why can't you give me a straight answer?
Because I can't give you a straight answer. I'm trying to.
Okay. What is the atheist position to that question? Yes, no, or I choose.
The atheist rejects the proposition, which means they believe the proposition's false.
So when you ask an atheist,
not
exist? Hold on. You're trying to dance out of this, and I'm not going to let you.
There's no dancing here.
That's exactly what you're doing. When you ask an atheist, do you believe in God? Yes, no, or you choose the agnostic position.
Okay, now you're even more confused here. Oh my God. Okay, there's two different ways you can look at atheism.
So you can't give a straight answer.
These are straight answers. I can't get more straight. If you don't understand, that's your problem.
No, I do understand, and I understand that you're doing everything you can do to not give that yes. No.
I am telling you straight up as possible. This is kindergarten stuff, dude.
Okay, put it in one word.
So kindergarten level philosophy.
Or agnostic.
So Brandon, pay attention here. Okay.
Yes, no, or agnostic.
They would say no. I just said 1,000 times. They say no. It rejects them as a belief.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now they could also choose the agnostic position, which is I don't know.
No, they can't. Okay.
Of course they can.
No, listen to me very carefully.
They can't be agnostic now.
Let me know when I can speak.
You're saying they can't be agnostic.
I'm just gonna let you talk until you're ready to listen to what I have to say.
I've listened.
Every time I say something, you stop me like one sentence into it.
Okay, you just admitted that the atheist says to the question, does God exist? The atheist says no. All right, now, do they have the option of choosing the agnostic position of I don't know?
Am I going to get time to speak here?
I'm just asking, do they have that option?
They can't. No, they can't.
They don't have the option.
Well, there's no option to be made if they've already evaluated the proposition. But since you don't know what that means,
an agnostic cannot say, no, I choose neither position.
Can I explain it to you now, or are you just going to interrupt me every sentence?
Well, how do you
exactly? Brandon, let me know when you want to have a fair talk on this, Brandon, because you can.
This is fair. Go ahead. Explain to me how.
I'm down to have a fair conversation at any point.
Yeah,
like Brandon, right now I am free, so.
Let me know how an agnostic cannot hold an agnostic position.
Brandon, do you think he's allowing me to actually give it a fair position?
Oh, no, not at all. This is absolutely ridiculous.
This is basically
you're trying to equate belief and knowledge. You're trying to say whenever you ask the question, does God exist, to an atheist, and an atheist says no, you're trying to assert that what he is trying to tell you is that he knows that it is not
the case. Right. Exactly. So let me make this very clear, Eric, because I'm telling you right here now, you do not understand this anywhere near.
Okay. Well, we're going to look at this definition again.
Okay.
Hold on
First of all, let me finish. Again, I cannot even speak.
Okay. Well, yeah, you're denying the definitions, dude.
You're looking at a colloquial. This is like a kindergarten going, oh, look, I have finger paint. This is
I don't see you bringing up any other definitions here.
Look at. I told you. Yes, I did. I said go to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Go to the Internet Encyclopedia.
Okay, pull it up and let it show me how I'm wrong.
You're running the Hangout. Go to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Look in there.
Go ahead. You're the one that knows where it's at. Pull it up.
Okay, can I give it to you and then you can show it to everybody? Sure.
Show them where I'm wrong.
Here you go.
Okay, look here. A person who holds that the existence or the ultimate cause as God and the essential nature of things are unknown or unknowable, or the human knowledge is limited to experience.
Okay, now actually look at a real definition by
that's one
philosophical source.
Of several parts of this definition.
Can you show Stanford Encyclopedia? This is what I was trying to explain, but you won't let me finish because you think you know all this and you don't. So let me go and show this the Stanford Encyclopedia, and let me try to explain it for a second.
Go ahead. You've got screen share.
Right. So Brandon, there's two ways. There's multiple ways actually, but the two most common ways to define atheism. One is called propositionally. Okay, and propositionally means in terms of theism. Okay, theism is true, then you're a theist, right? If God exists, you're a theist.
Yes, basic propositional logic.
Basic propositional logic. So an atheist that rejects that. That's how it's defined to be a person who rejects theism. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, there's
Is that
another
all
way.
they are? A person that rejects theism. Is that all they are?
Let me finish, please.
Is that all they are?
Let me finish, please.
Because that's not what you said yesterday.
If I can't finish, then why bother with this?
Well, I'm just asking you to clarify because you said
it depends on your type of atheism. That is a philosophical atheism, which I just said.
Yeah, you're telling us two entirely different things. One thing in your post last night, and one thing.
No, I'm not. I've been extremely consistent, and even Brendan can tell you that I've been extremely consistent. You're not understanding it.
Not at all. Go ahead.
Okay.
Explain to us how atheism does not say God does not exist.
Okay. That first of all, you're asking a different question. I like to finish my first thing first. The other way to define it, other than propositionally, is in a psychological state. Okay, and what that means is that if I hold a psychological state that God does not exist, that also would qualify as what's called a hard atheist. Another way to do it would be an ontological state, which would be.
Why are you bringing all this up when you
because
think
these are different ways to define atheism, and this is going to be critical to what you're talking about.
You already told me you thought that was ridiculous, so why are you even bringing it up?
You clearly misunderstand what I'm saying.
No, you said that was a ridiculous position.
No, this is perfectly fine. This is how it's done, dude.
You told me specifically I was right, and that is.
No, I did not. I said you're 80% right and 20% wrong. This is the 20% you keep getting wrong.
No,
did I not tell you that?
It was correct. Now you also said that these.
I told you that though. You're 80% right on this, and you're 20% wrong.
Now, did you not tell me yesterday that agnostic atheist, for instance, is a ridiculous term?
As a soft atheist, as a hard atheist, it's fine. It's just redundant.
And you don't believe in soft atheism or hard atheism, you said.
Well, what do you mean I don't believe in them? They do exist.
You don't prescribe to that position.
I am not a soft or hard atheist, no.
You are simply
agnostic.
You simply believe that atheists exist, agnostics exist, and theists exist. Do they not?
As well as
varying definitions.
Yeah, by varying definitions. There's also a lot of other categories.
But everybody falls under one of those three.
No, they do not.
Well, sure they do.
Well, then you're absolutely wrong.
When you're asking the question, does God exist?
Where does the theological, how does a theological non-cog fall into agnosticism when they don't even evaluate or not
when
evaluate?
The question is, does God exist? And your answer is yes, no, or I take neither position.
But you're trying to do an umbrella term, and that doesn't work that way.
No,
a theological non-cog.
That's the question you've got to answer. So, which are you going to choose as an atheist?
Sure, an atheist. Well, again, depends on what definition.
You want us to rephrase this so that you don't have to answer the hard questions.
I love the hard questions. The problem is you're not understanding the hard answers.
You don't have to be.
That's the problem.
So
these are hard answers that you're not getting, Eric. You don't understand these answers. That's the problem.
Sure, I do.
The questions are not that hard.
You want us to rephrase this so that it asks a completely different question.
Do you understand?
So that we don't compare atheism to agnosticism and to theism.
Right, but this is
which is the most illogical viewpoint.
This is the problem I have with
now. Okay, so if you want to just say, if you just want to try to talk over the people's head that might be listening in here and bullshit your way through this,
which is exactly what you're doing right now.
Instead of answering questions that are very simple,
what you're doing
with simple answers. Okay,
fine. I will keep it simple. Okay, Brandon. Just FYI, everything from this point, I'm talking to a 10-year-old, okay, or 5-year-old. I'm just going to keep it simple as can be because he's not understanding.
Right. Before you do that, though, I have a question. I have a question for Eric. Are
you insulting the listeners?
Where exactly?
You have 2 people watching, me and Barney.
What's that?
You have 2 people watching, and I know Ed Barney is one of my friends. So yeah, and that one's me.
Right. I have a question for Eric. Where on the spectrum, if you were going to use only atheism, theism, and agnosticism, where do you put pantheism at?
Yep, that's a good question too.
Well, pantheism would fall under somebody that believes in a god.
No, they don't.
Of course they believe that. No, they don't.
No, they don't.
Of course they do.
No,
they equate God with the universe. They believe that.
Of course they do.
You don't know what pantheism is, then?
Yeah, they believe everything is God.
But that, but you know what Spinoza's God is, or the God of philosophers, is not a metaphysical God. It's like saying I believe the sun is my God. That's not a metaphysical God. That doesn't make it a deity.
Wiccans can be pantheists.
Sure,
they certainly believe in a God.
But that's not his question to you, is it?
What? He just asked pantheists. Yes, that was his question.
Pantheists are considered mostly to be atheists. However, you can have theistic pantheist.
Oh yeah, pantheist, somebody that believes in gods, or atheist.
You want to go look? You want to go look at Wikipedia? Under non-theism, it has pantheism.
That's okay. That's okay.
No. Since you're showing things, since you wouldn't show my Stanford encyclopedia to your audience yet, how about we go to Wikipedia?
And here's what we're doing. We're talking about something that you agreed with me on yesterday. You said I'm right in all of this. And
you were 80% right. And
you're trying to rephrase the question.
No, sir.
The question is,
the 20% you got wrong.
The three classical beliefs of the three classical belief systems. What is the answer to the question of does God exist, and which is the most illogical?
Can you read that on the side there? Since you won't show my evidence, right? Or will you? Here, show. There's a link.
I told you that you have screen share.
Can I screen share?
Okay. The point is, you're trying to mix everything up, and you don't want to answer the question.
Oh, I love answering questions.
The way that I look at this, whenever I'm looking at this,
when I finally get you in a corner, you say, "Yes, you're right."
Well, you're not right. That's just
the atheist position claims that there is no God.
So can you see this?
How can they logically make that claim?
You can if Eric shuts up.
Well, yeah, no shit. All right, do you see this? This is not theism.
Brendan, you're about to go.
If you kick him, I leave too.
Brendan,
I'm not playing this monitor. And Brendan, if you leave, I'll start another hangout on my channel, which has hundreds of people watching.
All right, now, here's the question. When you take...
I don't want your question. I want to explain this, Eric.
Well, that's the question we're talking about.
Rabbit holes.
Which is the most illogical? How is it logical to make a claim that you cannot possibly back up? How is it logical to take the claim there is no God when you have absolutely no way to defend that, no way to prove it?
Well, first of all, again, atheism is not making a knowledge claim, just like theism is not making a knowledge claim.
Well, you disagreed with that yesterday.
Well, no, I did not. I've never made. You know what? Get in here.
Let me read
for a long time now.
Quotes.
I've never said that atheism is making a knowledge claim. That's absurd. Now, will you let your people like?
You said Eric and I don't agree on much, but on this much, I happen to agree with them, as well as most atheists that I do know as well. That
you can read that out a million times because you're not understanding it.
Atheism is not just, quote, a lack of belief.
I've already explained why it's not just a lack of belief, because there's philosophical atheism out there.
Let me be succinct, I guess. Atheism is atheism in academics or philosophy is a belief that God does not.
There you go. Belief. Exactly. There you go. Now you go. Yay.
Okay, so you're making a claim God does not exist.
A belief claim.
That's right. Just like a theist.
Just like theism is. Theism is a belief in God.
And you're always asking us for proof.
No, hang on. Let's finish one thing at a time here.
You're always asking us for proof.
Eric,
you don't want to be held responsible to give that proof. That's why you're trying to choose this position.
Eric, listen to me.
I just busted you, dude.
Eric, listen to me very
carefully. You're trying to say that atheism is simply a lack of belief in God now.
No, I'm not. That's Brandon's position, not mine.
When you hold the exact opposite position. Atheism is not just a lack of belief.
It can be a lack of belief. You're not understanding this. Look I've explained this to you many times.
That God does.
Oh my God, Brendan, do you really want to go somewhere else? Because he's not going to let us talk. All he does is
sounds like a plan, actually.
Right. Thanks, Eric.
Just saying, dude.
Eric, you will not let us speak. You just interrupt me again.
Sure, I'm just going to bust your bullshit every time you try to change your.
Well, you haven't busted anything, Eric.
You haven't busted anything.
Really haven't.
Sure. You two would say no, but everybody listening knows better.
Dude, their entire audience is a bunch of theists.
Their entire audience is laughing at you, Eric.
If you want to say that atheism is just a lack of belief, I don't mind at all showing where you said otherwise, that atheism is not just.
I have so many videos on this. This is like talking to a child. I swear to God.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that cool?
So, Eric, are you afraid of me? Wait, Eric, I want to know. Eric, are you afraid of me? Are you afraid to let me have more than one sentence out before you interrupt me? Are you afraid?
No, I'm just not going to.
Okay. Then why don't you let that happen? What are you scared?
Trying to tell people that you don't.
He's scared. Look at this. He is so scared because he knows what I'll show. He won't show any of my evidence.
You just got busted.
He's so. You're the one who got busted. You're so scared of me. Oh my God, I'm harmless.
Listen to you.
I'm so harmless.
Listen to you. Aaron Ra is the one that's afraid to come on here. Matt Dillahunty is the one.
This is why Matt Dillahunty won't even talk to this guy.
Sure.
This is comical. You're like a third grader.
So you're trying to tell everybody that atheism is a mere lack of belief.
This guy just comes in and he doesn't know what a proposition is. It's like, what the hell?
Okay.
Oh my God.
So atheism I'm muting the moron here for a moment, folks.
I'm dying laughing. I'm sorry. This is funny. I'm enjoying this.
Atheism,
I really am.
he tries to tell us in one breath, is more than just lack of belief, but when that comes to be inconvenient, and he's going to have to actually defend his
So you're gonna mute me because you don't want to hear the truth.
It's only a lack of belief. Okay. Now,
So
is atheism a simple lack of belief in?
That's a little better.
Oh my God, Brandon, we're gonna go to my channel after this, and we're gonna have a real discussion with actually like 100 people watching rather than one.
Okay, there you go.
Bye, Eric.
Don't worry, this is going to get a lot more views. Everybody's asleep, and there he goes, folks. The moron goes. He can't answer questions. You see, this is the problem with people that are so-called educated. They try to talk over everybody. They try to bullshit you at every turn. Their story is ever changing. Like yesterday when he said, and I showed everybody, he agrees with me that there's only 3 views on this. He agrees with me on all of that. He says I'm right. He says that atheism is not just a lack of belief. Atheism is also a belief that God does not exist. You saw it with his own 2 words, folks. And, you know, just to reiterate that, I'm going to pull it back up again. You heard him say that, try to get away with saying tonight that atheism is just a lack of belief. Why would he do that, folks? I'll tell you why. He has to believe that. He has to. He has no choice. Okay? He has to believe that because it blows his, it blows his little belief system to say otherwise. It blows his debate. He has to say, yes, atheism is the most illogical of the 3 positions because they're assuming something that they can't possibly know. Okay, but look here. I'm going to show you this. Read this very carefully. If you go down, blah, 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 blah. Eric and I don't agree on much, but on this, I happen to agree with him, as well as most atheists I know do as well. That atheism is not just a, quote, lack of belief. Let me be succinct, I guess. Atheism in academics or philosophy is a belief that God does not exist. Now, you see him, that's what he says last night. But tonight, when put in the corner, because it's illogical to make claims that you can't possibly know, and it's unscientific to make claims that you can't possibly know, he doesn't want to defend that. That's why they have to play these mental spasmatics. They play these mental spasmatics to try to get over, to try to avoid the responsibility of defending their position. They try to say, no, I don't really have that position, blah, blah, blah. Well, if the question is, does God exist? And you have the 3 choices, atheist, no, theist, yes, or the agnostic position that rejects them both. Then he's forced to say that atheism is making a claim that they can't possibly prove. Now, he tried to argue that, no, they don't have to, but the only ones that don't make a claim are the agnostics. They make a claim neither way. They're the only ones that reject both claims. They don't make a claim that God exists. They don't make a claim that God does not exist. Okay, that's the agnostic, and he's trying to get out of this because the agnostic claim is much more scientifically sound and much more logical than the atheist position. At least they're not claiming to know something that they can't possibly know. But the atheist, when asked, does God believe? If they answer no, they are certainly making a definite statement. If they don't believe no, then they're either theist or agnostic. They're not really atheist. So we see that it's illogical to make a claim that you can't possibly back. We see that it's unscientific to make a claim that you can't possibly back. So the point is, no matter what, when asking the question, does God exist? Yes, no, or I take an agnostic position on this. It's totally illogical to be and atheist. It's totally unscientific. And yet they claim to be the most scientific ones. They claim, oh, you don't understand. You don't understand. Of course we understand. You're spreading all this bullshit knee deep, head deep, to try to distract from the truth, distract from the questions. Then you pretend like it's the people that around you that are ignorant, because they take the question for what it is. You're the one doing mental spasmatics to try to avoid the question as framed so that you don't have to defend your position. So we see that we've won the question of, can there really be such thing as an agnostic atheist? We won that one handily in threads and televised debates. And we've won this one too, that atheism is in fact, because he's not here to defend, he left without defending it. He wouldn't answer the question, how in the world is it logical to make a claim that you can't possibly know? How in the world is that scientific? It's not on either account. And rather than just answer those simple questions, you saw what he wanted to do. You saw the denial he went into. You saw the frantic, oh my God, let me do anything I can to change this question. Reframe this question. I don't want to answer it like that. Well, he's the one that told me to pick the topic, and he's the one that said that he would easily defeat this. All he wanted to do was change what he'd said yesterday and change the meanings of atheist, agnostic, and theist. You gotta love today's education. Biggest morons money can buy. That's just the way it is, folks. But that's what you're dealing with today. That's the ridiculousness of what they're putting out of our schools today. That's the ridiculousness of those that say God does not exist. They're just simply making claims that they cannot at all possibly back. And I'm really sorry he left, because I would have loved to have gone into how, you know, the Christian has, the theist belief has so much evidence, it's just overwhelming, right down to biology and astrophysics, personal experiences, God dealing with people as individuals. Yes, sir. Over 90% of the world believes in that there is a God for a reason. We have nothing at all to be ashamed of. We're not the ones that have to hide from definitions and try to bury words and change what we believe or what we state we believe from one day to the next because part of a definition suits us one day and not the next. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you very, very much for dropping in. I'm not going to keep going on with this. It's obvious what the most logical or illogical position is. The most illogical position is atheism. You can't make claims that you can't possibly prove either way and be credible. You can't do that and be logical. If there's a claim that you can't prove and you make it anyway, you're not being objective or scientific. You're not using scientific procedure, that's for sure. Scientific methodology. You're certainly being illogical. So thank you very much, folks. Comment on here. Let me know what you think. Let me see. I'm going to jump over in here real quick. Blah, blah, blah. Pardon me just a moment. And I see a couple of friends there. Okay, let me give a little shout out to Christine. Hello there, Christine. Barney, good to see you. How you doing? Let us know if you'd ever like to join in. Rick, hello, how you doing, buddy? Great debate community, hello. Yeah, goodbye. You didn't last very long. Sorry you had to play such mental spasmatics. But you guys have a great day. Thank you very much for listening. Give this thing a thumbs up. Pass it on to people you know and let them see how logical it is to choose the atheist position and the extremes they'll go to try to get out of admitting this and answering simple, very simple questions that they know are coming that's going to destroy their position, make it look really, really bad. Well, thanks, folks. Everybody have a great day. This is Wolfbitn, and we are out.